Hello everybody, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to show you how I made my Onstage swap for Red Deer 2018. I've already shown it on my blog a couple of times, and I had a couple of ladies say, how do you get the raised piece and how do you make it so that you've got a little bit of stamping on this side as well? So I thought I would just show you quickly how I made it. It is a very simple card to make. You don't need a lot of supplies and there's not even a lot of stamping. Now the first thing you need is a 4x4 piece of watercolour paper. And what I did to start and make my masks for this was use a 4x4 piece of just ordinary cardstock. It was just a piece of scrap. I cut it 4x4 and then with the Big Shot I used the largest stitched square framelit, popped it in the middle and ran it through the Big Shot, and the little yellow piece that was left I kept just in case I need it for the back of a card for some time. So there was my frame, and if you didn't want to do this you could use washi tape and put the washi tape across the sides, and that would actually stick it down onto your paper as well so that it didn't move. But I find that when I use washi tape it often peels the top of my watercolour paper off, so I like to use these masks instead. And then this non-permanent glue runner, I actually bought this at Staples I think. It comes off card really easily, so I just put a couple of little bits across the frame so that it sticks onto the watercolour paper. You can use these more than once. I think this one I've used 2 or 3 times already. Stick it down and then you've got your little square showing for where you're going to be doing your sponging. Now, first thing I like to make for it is this moon part, and for that I used my 1-inch punch and a post-it note, and I just cut out the 1-inch punch circle on the sticky part of the post-it, and then I choose where I think I'd like my moon to be, and I tend to like it on the left hand side, so just pop my moon in there, stick it down, and then with another post-it I make my first layer of mountains, and it's this piece here. So I keep the sticky part for the bottom and I just tear into what I think might make a nice mountain shape. And then when I look at it and think, no, it's not quite right, you can just tear another piece off. It's no problem at all. I just want a bigger mountain. There, that's the size of the mountain I need. And then I just stick that down where I want that first mountain to be and over the moon, and just put a little bit of the tape on the moon just to hold that paper down. And the first colour I'm going to use is the soft sky. So I get my little sponge daubers. Sometimes I use the big sponges, but I like these little sponge daubers. I like to put the name of the colour on that I'm using, and then I don't get any ink transfer. So just try out the ink, and that's a little bit darker than I want, so I'm going to just run a little bit over the paper and then start to sponge on my card. And I always start at the edge and I sponge in little circles just until I get the colour that I want. The edges and the corners away from the moon I tend to make a little bit darker, and above the moon I make a little bit darker too. You don't need much ink at all, just keep going over the shape until you're happy. Okay, that's as much of the soft sky as I need. I'm sad to see that this hasn't made the cut for the new catalogue this year, but I did see that the new colour, Balmy Blue, would be lovely for skies as well. Now, the next ink that I need is the Wisteria Wonder, and that's going to be my first mountain. So I'm going to take off my little post-it note and the little moon post-it, and you can see here I don't have an edge for the mountain yet. So what I do is I just get another little bit of post-it note and I just put a little bit of tape on it. I put it over the moon, but try and make it so that it connects to both sides of the mountain. And then when I start to do my sponging with the purple, it will look like the mountain goes right up to the moon. So I'll just find my Wisteria Wonder, dab a little bit off so that it's not too dark, and then just, oh, I should have put just another little layer on there, sorry. This is going to be my next layer, like this, a little bit of the tape on. Okay, and then just circles again from the edge. All the way along. I tend to make just a little bit darker at the bottom and at the corners so that it looks like the mountain has a little bit of depth in these layers. Take off this little piece and then see how now the moon looks like it's just peeping out behind that mountain. You can always go back later, add a little bit more colour if you need to, but I'm happy with that for now. Then my next layer will be the Perfect Plum. Find my little Perfect Plum, move this layer, and I'm going to take another post-it, make a different shape. Let's see, I think I'd like, oh, that looks nice. To there. Okay, so let's see how dark it is. Oh, nice, just about right for this second layer. Little circles, darker at the corner, and all the way up to where the white line is. Now you don't have to go over the white line very much. There we go. If you want a little bit more in the corner, just add a little bit more, just to give that texture. And then last of all will be the Elegant Eggplant. I don't need any more masking. Need my, there we go, little eggplant. Now, Elegant Eggplant is quite a dark colour. So I always just rub some of it off. It tends to show up very, very dark on the watercolour paper. And for this bottom layer, I like to do like a little crescent shape at the very bottom. And it just gives that rounded look to the last layer. Remember, you can always add more when you've taken your mask off. If you think, oh no, I need my top mountain, a little part of the mountain a little bit darker, then you can always add a little bit more. The only other colour I need is my So Saffron, and I add a little tiny bit of the yellow just to make it look like the moon has shone down into the valleys and down the mountain. There we are. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Put that away. Okay, and I think that's it for my inks. While I'm using inks though, I will just show you the new ink pads. I don't know if you've seen them already. I was lucky enough to demonstrate at Onstage, and I was given two of the new colours, the Blackberry Bliss and the Petal Pink. and just want to show you side by side how the new pads look against the old ones. They did tell us at Onstage that the mould that they used for the old pads, they're allowed to use it so many times and it's coming to the end of its life. So rather than use the same mould again, they asked lots of the demonstrators what they thought would be an improvement, and this is what they came up with. It opens like a compact very easily. See? It's a nice size of ink pad on there, and on the back there are all the little stickers that we normally use just to have the colour name, and this time, as well as being the names, there's one blank piece that's just plain colour, and that goes inside. You see here, it goes on the inside of the pad, so that when you've got it open on the table you can see exactly what colour it is. So let's just put this back and open this one for you so that you can see. See, it comes just blank, so you take off the one strip from the back and just add it onto here. Close it up. And you can also see on the top of the ink pads there are little dents, and on the bottom there are these little dimples. So when you put two on top of each other, the little dent fits into that little dimple, and they stack quite nicely. Go back to the card. So the next thing we've got to do is the stamping of the bamboo. Now, I'll get my Tranquil Tide ink and my bamboo stamp, and I always like just to stamp once, just to check that my stamps are exactly how I want them to be, and that one is. And when you stamp, make sure you leave it so that some of the bamboo shoots come off and onto the plain watercolour paper where you haven't done any sponging, and a little bit at the bottom. Sorry if you can see my head there. Just hold it for a couple of seconds, lift it off, and then let's find the sentiment. Happy birthday. Check that it's stamping okay. Yep. And I'm going to just let me take that little bit of ink, not ink, the tape off from there, and just pop this on here and offset it just a little bit. There we go. Now, the next thing we need to do is to use the Big Shot. And this is the biggest of the squares. It's the same one that we used on the mask to punch out. You just need to line it up on your sponge picture. It doesn't matter if it's not quite straight or not quite in the right place. You can see here I've got a little bit of white border down the side, and you might not be able to see here, but I have just a little bit of green and purple mountain at this side. It really doesn't harm the picture at all. So take that, pop it through the Big Shot, and when you take it out, I'll just pop this through the Big Shot, and then I'll show you what happens when we take it out. So here's my Big Shot, and I have the magnetic platform in mine. That's the one I use as my go-to platform. Then pop that on there. Just put the little square on wherever you think it's going to be centered. A clear plate on top and run it through. I always run mine forwards and then backwards, just so that it ends up at the start again for me. Not because it needs to run through twice. Okay. So now when you take off the framelit, you'll see that you have the two pieces. What you need to do next is to put glue on here. I just use fast fuse, and glue it down onto a black piece of card which is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So you glue it down, and then the inserts you need to put dimensionals on, and I usually just put one in each corner, and then just center it back into your square and stick it down. Now let's take these off. I then have put a 4 1/2 inch square of Wisteria Wonder underneath, and then just 3 of our little rhinestones. These are the rhinestones that come in the 3 sizes, and I've used the smallest on here. When I was looking earlier though, I did think I could have used the glitter and clear epoxy shapes as well. And then with this card, you can put it onto a square card backing. I have some square cards that are 4 1/2 by 4 1/2, and I would probably pop it onto there. Or you could put it onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card front, and maybe have a little ribbon across the bottom or something just to fill in some of the blank space. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make the card, and if you've got any questions, just pop your questions on the video below. Thanks very much. See you soon. Bye.